It was 22 years ago today when 9/11 happened. Been doing a lot of reflecting, and for the first time I heard some voicemail messages that were left by those that perished that day, and I couldn't believe I hadn't heard those because I thought I heard them all. And wow, it was so emotional to hear those, and I think it's so important we don't forget that day. Sadly, there are a lot of people that are alive today that were not alive then that really don't understand the impact it had on us. And many people really have forgotten because time eases that pain. And that's why it's so important we don't forget and have that anniversary every year. And I wanted to share this video because I went on Facebook and I asked people where they were that day when they had heard. And so that's what I wanted just to share, even where I was a few days before and that day, and would love to hear your stories and how it had an impact. Did you know anybody on any of the planes or in the buildings? So it was 3 days before I went to the US Open. I grew up in New York, went home, went to the US Open, and I went to the top of the stadium, and then at the time they didn't have a roof. And I got the skyline photo, as you can see here, and I was able to get the World Trade Center in there. That is barely showing over my right shoulder. And when I look back at that, to think 3 days later, the buildings are gone, and what a day that was. And I got a call that morning of 9/11 from a good friend of mine who sadly passed away a few years ago. And he said, "Sid, did you hear about the planes going to the World Trade Center?" And I said, "I did not." So I turned the TV on. I was supposed to go to an appointment, and I ended up going anyway, and I regretted that I went, but I did. And obviously the rest is history, and it's so hard to comprehend that day. My father was telling me he was working and he could see from his office building the plane going into one of the World Trade Center buildings, so I can't imagine seeing that live, let alone on TV. I know somebody that had a good friend in his wedding party who was in that building that went down, and you just hear stories of people getting out of the buildings on time. So I thought I would just share about my experience that day. And I never, obviously again, time does heal, but it's a day for me to have this, to hear those voicemails, to reflect again and never forget. And now more than ever, I think it's our country needs to, stay strong, and especially those that were not there that day need to remember by, things that they've seen, and hearing the stories, to never forget and to share those stories for generations to come. So please share anything that happened that day for you, where you were, and how it has an impact for you. And I appreciate it. And everybody have a peaceful day. Thanks so much for joining. Have a great day. Take care.